Good afternoon. Hello. Okay, good, it works. Good afternoon. My name's Chris Abraham, and I'm here to present and moderate the workshop number two, social media marketing strategies to grow your small business. The description's in the catalog, but what I want to do very quickly is introduce the three panelists that we have here with us. Firstly, my name's Chris Abraham. I work for a local company called Garris Corp. We do social media marketing strategy, we do online reputation management, and we do search engine optimization. It's pretty much a client service company. We do the work in-house and then do consulting and strategy on top of that. But enough about me. I would like to introduce Mark Hausman, President and CEO, Strategic Communications Group Incorporated. As founder, president, and CEO of Strategic Communications Group, Mark helps technology, telecom, security software, healthcare, and financial services companies more quickly identify leads, nurture prospects, and close deals through a unique methodology called Web 2 Sales. I like that. Strategic's clients include global brands such as Comstore, Corporate Executive Board, Iron Bow Technologies, Juniper Networks, NetApp, Pitney Bowes, and Polycom, as well as growth-oriented companies like Authornate, Concilio, Divi Cloud, and VMed. Mark authors the popular Strategic Guy blog, this is him, and has written columns for the American City Business Journals, Digital Marketing Remix, Modern Marketing Today, and Social Media Today. I write for that one too sometimes. He has published 2 books, Welcome to Web to Sales, Revenue Creation via Content Search, Social, Digital, and CRM, and The Intersection Point, where content, social, and sales collide. Next, we have Christian Karasiewicz?
Very good, yes, yeah, very good.
Is that a Polish name?
Yes.
Excellent, I love it. He's a consultant public speaker, social media, internet, and technology. He can often be found glued to his iPhone or offering his time to individuals and business owners to help them develop, create, and put into action a successful marketing campaign. With over 10 years of experience across social media, e-commerce, internet marketing, personal branding, affiliate marketing, and related technologies, Christian strives to create meaningful social media campaigns that help businesses connect and engage with their customers and to keep coming back. Christian has created social media campaigns across a variety of different industries, ranging from online retailers and medium to small businesses, to individual projects, celebrities, musicians, athletes, defense contractors, news organizations, fashion designers, and jewelry designers. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And Daniel Russell. Is that pronounced right?
It is, yes.
Author, speaker, and founder of Attentive, a DC-based software company, GoDC. Besides leading Attentive to breakneck growth with innovative guerrilla marketing techniques, and that's why you're here, Daniel has also consulted large companies like Whirlpool and Zynga on their marketing research efforts and helped international governments set up their digital platforms. He and his work have been featured in the Washington Post, Inc. magazine, Fast Company, Entrepreneur, and KABC Talk Radio. And he was most recently a digital media invitee at Mashable's Digital Beltway event in DC. Daniel graduated from Brigham Young with a degree in economics and history, and he's another lawyer in DC, having received his JD from George Mason School of Law. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
We're going to start now with the respective presentations. We're starting with Mark. So, Mark, take it away.
All right, I'm going to do my best here to actually go micless. I was going to use this wireless mic, but it's about as heavy as a brick. So I'm going to speak real loud, and I'm going to walk around a little bit. Not that sitting up there isn't great. Just give me a better chance to engage with the audience. And what my promise to you today in the next 15 minutes is very simple. I'm going to try to make this the most informative, educational, and dare I say, entertaining 15 minutes that you have all week. And I know that's a big promise because we've got some exceptional speakers here today, but I feel pretty good about that promise because in addition to my role at Strategic for the last 6 years, I've performed stand-up comedy throughout the Washington, D.C. area. addition to my role at Strategic, by performing as a stand-up comedian, my wife and I actually have 3 sons. We have a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a baby. Yes, this is actually my only wife. This has been the second wife. That's always a question that I get. And this is also an illustration of 2 very important points in life. So if you are a male here in the audience, I want to really act in on these 2 very important points. First point is that when they tell you the system is 99.6% reliable, they are not kidding. Sometimes, okay, you guys will be going, huh? Sometimes the 0.4% can change your world, all in a good way. But yeah, so I've got 3 sons. This story is actually about my, usually that plays a lot better. Okay, I'm with you. Okay, good. So this story is actually about my second son, Landon. Landon is a 4th grader at Woodacres Elementary School in Bethesda, and we have just started the semester. So you start the semester in public school. They have this great idea where bring in the parents each Friday, invite in a couple parents. What is it that my mom or dad does professionally? So my wife was kind enough to volunteer me to be one of the first parents to come in to Woodacres Elementary School. So I show up there last Friday, and you get there and you meet the teacher in the hallway, and there's one other father who's there. He just happens to be the assistant fire chief in Montgomery County. And so he's there in his full guard, he's got the plastic hats, and we're out there in the hallway, and Miss Avery comes down and says, well, who wants to go in first? And of course he says, I gotta get back to the fire station, we may have some emergencies, and all that stuff. Let me go first. And I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. So he goes in there for like 10 minutes, and he's talking to these 4th graders, and finally he comes out, so the door opens, and all I see is there are a bunch of kids in there cheering, right? They're all wearing those plastic hats now. So he comes in, he looks at me, and he's like, good luck. All right, fine, great, my turn. So Miss Akron invites me into the class. We're talking about 29, 9, and 10-year-olds, right? So we're really engaged audience. And she says to my son, Landon, who you can't really see that, but he's right there with one next to me. And he says, Landon, would you like to get up and introduce your father? And so he stands up in front of his class. I mean, this is new classmates. Stands up in front of his 29 classmates. And he says in his proudest voice, my dad gets up in the morning, showers and shaves, puts on a suit, he puts on a tie, he drives into this office, and I have no idea what he does. But because I follow him on Twitter, I know he tweets all day long. And the best part of the story is, he wasn't the only one on Twitter. 3 of his classmates were on Twitter, 2 are on Instagram, and 1 actually had a blog. And these are 4th graders, right? Now I know this isn't your audience, but this is illustrating a very important thing, something that is relevant to every single person in this room. How companies sell and market their solutions has dramatically changed over the last 10 years, more so than in 100 years before that. And there are two really important trends that I want to hit on in this presentation. The first trend is something that the analyst research firms refer to as the enlightened buyer. So that's a term that the corporate executive board uses. Forrester Research uses a term called the buyer's journey. What this points to is the fact that people now, whether it is a consumer or a business-to-business environment, have actually changed how they interact with the companies that they buy products and services from. No one likes being sold to, right? When you walk into a retail store and you're going to buy a shirt, what's the one thing you hate? That guy comes over and is like, hey, can I help you out, right? You walk into a car dealership, you dread that person coming over, hey, how can I help you, right? We chat you out to everything. Nobody likes being sold to. So what's happened with the web, as things like Google have made content on the web searchable, and as social media has moved a lot of things online, a lot of discussions, a lot of interactions, suddenly people don't have to be sold to anymore. They can do a heck of a lot of due diligence on their own. They can go out and research what their needs are. They can learn about their company. They can talk to their friends. They can talk to their peers to understand, has anyone done business with you before? Think about how you make a decision about a restaurant to go to now. Right? Don't you go out to your Facebook and say, hey, I'm thinking about grabbing some Italian tonight. Anyone have any thoughts or recommendations? That's called the enlightened buyer. In fact, the research recently done by Forrester is fascinating, and this is business-to-business research. What they have found is they interviewed more than 3,000 buyers of other products and services from the business-to-business environment. And what they found is, on average, the typical person is nearly 70% of the way through the process before they actually talk to a company they want to work with. 70% of the way through the process. And you think, hey man, that's great news, right? Getting calls from people and they're educated. They want to talk about doing business together. Leave that on the side of the road. Completely wrong. What happens with the enlightened buyer is suddenly sales. I would love to tell you this is a fast growth emerging segment of the marketplace because we're all friends. The truth is I just made that up, web of sales. Doesn't that sound good though? It's got the number 2 in there because I work in marketing and that's what marketers do. But the concept is actually quite simple and relevant for each of you. Web of sales. You have a corporate website. You're kind of involved in social media. Maybe you've got a Facebook page, you've got a LinkedIn page, maybe you're on Twitter. Maybe you're doing something with digital communications. You've got constant contact or exact target. You're doing some email outreach. You've got a variety of different channels or ways that you communicate to the marketplace. What if you could take those things and make them a little bit more defined, bring a little bit of structure to it, and actually make it so all of those activities are measurable and trackable as it relates to actually bringing in new customers and generating revenue? Wouldn't that be effing cool, right? So I say happen because they told me not to cuss during this presentation. I'm not business audience. Okay? I'm going to be performing at the Capitol Hill New Year's Eve. You want to hear me cuss, you can come to that show. I'm going to cuss a lot. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to cuss a lot. Maybe a little bit. So let's break down web of sales. And let me share with you now 4 tips, 4 simple things that you can do tomorrow to incorporate web of sales into your business to utilize social media to attract new customers. Best practice number 1 is be tactical. This is what a lot of organizations do that get in trouble. They try to make sweeping changes about what they try to accomplish with their website and their social media. Right? We're going to just change the way that we sell and market. I've been involved in some of those projects. What I can tell you is it never works. It's always incredibly frustrating. What I always tell business owners, what I always tell our clients is start with something small that's meaningful. Hey, I've got this new store. I'm in this new area. Let me attract a whole bunch of customers. Or I'm going to this trade show or this event that's really important. Let me do some marketing work around that. Find something, some sort of activity that you already have planned, and be very tactical when you start thinking about web to sales, social media, how it can drive revenue, how it can help you find customers more quickly. It's okay, you can build from there. Best practice number 2, collaborate with your sales team. It's true. Most organizations, there is this weird dysfunctional relationship that exists between the marketing people and the sales people. Has anyone experienced that, right? Marketing people always have the same complaint. I give the sales people a whole bunch of leads and they never follow up with them. And what do sales people say all the time? Marketing gives me a whole bunch of leads and they're terrible leads. Like there's this weird dysfunction that exists. It even happens in my company. I run a 35-person professional services firm. My marketing person and my sales people, I don't even think they like each other very much. So I have to force them to come together. This is a really important best practice you have to employ in your organization. If you have sales people, guess who's talking to your customers all the time? They are. They know what customer needs are. They know what customer requirements are. They know what challenges are. You want to incorporate them into your sale, into your marketing process, into the content that you put up on your website, into what you share and promote in social media. And with your marketing folks, you've got to make sure that sales is very clear as to what it is that marketing is doing. It's a really important best practice. It's very easy to accomplish. And as a business owner, what I do is I make them talk. I make them come together at least every other week. We're not really happy about it, but it's really important. The next best practice, and this may be the most important one, think like a publisher. What does this mean? Most companies with their marketing, with what they put up on their website, with what they share on Facebook, with what they share on LinkedIn, most companies will tell you, here are the 10 reasons why I'm so great. Here's why you should do business with me. Wells Fargo guy had that great slide, right, with all those wonderful bullet points. Appropriate in this presentation, not appropriate when it comes to social media and web to sales. Our job is educate our customers. Remember what I said before, in Light and Buyer, where they used to go for information not producing as much? What if you could be the source of that information? What if your website was like a trade magazine? That instead of here's the 10 reasons to do business with me, here are 4 things that you need to know to be more successful if you're buying this. Or if you have a need in this, here's a way that you should think did they do once they got there? How long did they stay and they share that information with everybody? This is like gold. Google just gives it away. I can't tell you how many websites where I go to where people aren't even using Google Analytics. If you spend a little bit of time to understand from a marketing and sales perspective what's the technology that's available to you, a whole bunch of it is free. It's really easy to overlay onto your website. So again, web to sales, think about it in this way. My website isn't just a promotional vehicle, it's where I educate people about how they can make smart decisions in the area in which I'm selling products and services. And then I'm going to use social media to actually distribute that content to attract people to me. And then I'm going to use analytics to study and understand who's coming, where they're coming from, and does that represent potential business opportunities. So I've just given you a snippet, I've given you a taste, I've given you a hit on the crack pipe. A great thing about marketing and sales is give people an ability to find more and interact with you. So here's where you can find more. If you like this presentation, I've got a great online magazine that my company publishes called Modern Marketing Today, filled with all kinds of best practices. Free to subscribe, free to go to. You can download all sorts of stuff. You don't even need to know PR. Just think nice things about it. If you like what I've shared with you today and you want to learn a little bit more, I've got a book called Welcome to Web to Sales. You can download it for free. Again, you don't even need to register for it. It dives into each of these best practices a little bit more and shares specific examples. So I appreciate the time today. I'm going to hang around for a few minutes afterwards in case you have any questions. These guys are going to share some other best practices. And again, I hope you found this interesting and somewhat entertaining. And if you want to see me live on stage, this month I'm at Nightmare Manor, which is in Gaithersburg, Maryland, for like Halloween type events. That's where I am. And if you're interested in a great New Year's Eve show, let me know. I can get you into the Capitol Hilton for free. That's not true. I can't get you into it. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Mark. We're going to hold off questions until we're through with all three presentations, so please use those beautiful notebooks you've been provided to note down the questions you're going to ask when we're done. Okay, next up, Christian, over to you.
Thank you very much. Great presentation, by the way, Mark.
Yeah, really good.
So today I want to talk about 3 ways you can succeed at social media. So a little bit about me. My name is Christian Karasevich. If you have anything that, if you have any questions or you find anything interesting, in this presentation that you want to tweet out, feel free to do that and use the hashtag SmallBizSummit. In my spare time, I work for, I'm a social business manager and a strategist for a Fortune 500 company. I run my own social media consulting business, and I've got over 10 years working in e-commerce, worked with a number of small and medium business owners. And, and through that time, I've learned a lot about those business owners, a lot of the challenges, a lot of the pain points, with using social. So just a quick show of hands, I know Mark talked about some of this, but how many of you have at least one or more social media channel for your business? Very good. Okay, good number of you. How many of you actually have a Facebook page for your business? Okay. Are you posting at least one time per day to those channels? Okay, so obviously, I'd love to see more hands on that one because social is really important that you're constantly engaging with the audience. How many of you are committing at least, say an hour a day? It could be 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the evening on your social media channels. Okay. And lastly, how many of you have a strategy and an editorial calendar that you actually use, that you go off of? Okay, so I bring up all these points because these are the fundamentals for social media. You have to put in the time. You need to have a presence on some of these channels, and you also, to kind of help you get started with this, you need to start with a strategy and you need an editorial calendar. Most business owners that I've worked with, they come into this and they don't have any of those things. They don't have the calendar in place, and they're struggling. They're like, hey, social media is supposed to be this, this holy grail that I can go and post stuff on, and all of a sudden I'm going to start generating, sales and leads. And you have to have some of those things in place. They're going to help make the work a lot easier. So, Mark, you talked a lot about, you talked about sales, and whatnot. Sales are important, obviously. With social, out of the top 500 retailers, they generated $3.3 billion from social. And that's actually a 26% increase according to Internet Retailer over the previous year. But when you look at some of the other reports, Mark, you talked about this, about an email list, and we talked about direct, people heading to your website directly or through search. Social is only referring back 1.5%. It's an increase, over like the previous year, it was 0.5% up to 1.5%. But what's really, I think, important about this is that out of those numbers, 1.72 hours per day is actually being spent on social platforms. So you've got people that are on these channels, they're probably sharing photos of their, family, engaging with friends, things like that, But when you break it down, they're actually spending 28% of their day on social activities. I mean, that's pretty staggering. I mean, if I'm a business owner, I really want to learn how to tap into that, right? Because, these people are there. People are obviously generating sales off of this, so how can I go about doing that? So it's going to start with defining your audience. And here are a couple of questions to ask yourself. Who are you trying to reach and what are their interests? What social media channels are they on? If you're over there and, let's say you have a Facebook page and yet your customers, they can't get to your page, for instance, because maybe they're in another country and it's blocked or something. Or, they're mainly on Twitter, like you're fishing in the wrong pond. So you need to start off by identifying where your customers are going to be at and ask yourself those questions. But also, it's also about being helpful as a business. It's not just about selling and pushing all of your content through social. You want to be helpful. And you do that through, the content and everything like that you are creating. So here's an example of my ideal customer. For instance, my customer might be 20 to 65. I'm answering these questions. 20 to 65 looking to apply, say, social media tools to grow their business. And in turn, I'm actually, going to try to teach them how to execute some of those tactics in their particular field. So, that's how I would look at it. I would suggest to you to answer those questions, for yourself. This way you can, learn more about who your customer is. So, a quick tweetable for anybody who's on Twitter. Before you sell on social, define your ideal customer first. And this is important because it's not about having a huge audience. You could have 10,000 people, like great, it looks, they're vanity metrics. But what's really important is that you have an engaged audience. And you have an engaged audience when you know who your customer is and you know what their interests are. Second point that I want to make. It's about defining, developing a social strategy. A lot of times when people first got on social media, they set up all their profiles and they said, hey, I'm on social media and I'm on Facebook and I'm on Twitter and I'm on YouTube. Great. But then when you looked at those channels, they weren't doing anything with them. And you have to have a strategy. If you currently don't have a strategy, I would recommend to everyone to, don't stop what you're doing, but take the time to develop a strategy. And the reason why is because your strategy is actually going to be a roadmap. Your strategy is where you want to go and how you're going to get there. So if you identified who your customer is and you know that, okay, they're, say, on Facebook, you're going to get to them through the content that you're sharing, which we'll get to in a minute. And I found this stat, by the way, and I thought this was pretty interesting. 91% of retail businesses have 2 or more social media channels, but you can't compare yourself to every business that's out there, even your competitors. You have to look at what you have the time to actually devote to social. Like it's not, like I said, it's not a magic bullet. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to automate all of this. You have to actually spend the time, getting to know your audience, getting to know your customers. Whether they're people that are coming into your store, looking at your website, getting to know, like commenting on like the content you're sharing your content. So to do that, also, you want to make sure that you're diversifying your business on your channels. What you're going to post, for instance, on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and Instagram, you're not going to take the same message and say, okay, I'm going to automate it and put it on every one of those channels. And great, I've got social media working for my business. That's not going to work. People are going to see right through that. You have to make your channels a destination. They have to be something that people want to go to, and you do that through the content that you're sharing. For example, you could be talking about your company. Maybe you want to share industry news that you think is interesting, that is relevant for your customers. You may want to share testimonials. Like if you've got some really good customer wins, ask your customers, hey, can I share that on my social media channels? A lot of times, they'll actually say, yeah, I really want that. Please share my content. And hey, when you do that, make sure you notify them so that they can share it with their audience. And you can tap into their network even further than just going beyond that one-to-one relationship. So speaking of content, what are some ways that you can go about creating, like what kind of content do you need to post on your social channels? Well, for starters, you should follow industry blogs and websites. And this is to give you ideas. For instance, as Mark talked about, Like it could give you ideas to post on your social channels. Like you might find a great news article. Maybe you want to take that further and you want to put together a blog post, that's relevant for that content. So you're not just, you're not just like sharing news, but you're able to create something else off of it. What questions do you get from your customers? A lot of times, like all of this information is right in front of you. I mean, your customers, like they're telling you what their issues are, and if they're not telling you, don't be afraid to ask, because the more you engage with them as a business owner and you take down those walls and you let them get to know you, the more they're going to want to actually, you're priming the pump. The more that I'm interested in, what this person has to say, the more that, the more that, I'm learning what these people are, interested in, the more that I'm creating the content, the more I'm becoming a resource, that I'm becoming a go-to site for this person, or even for this business owner. Actually, it could be someone else looking to come into business as well. Also, I mentioned identifying pain points, offering solutions, scheduling time for creating content. A lot of people, you could say, okay, you're a busy business owner. Like, I know you're busy and you don't have a lot of time. So you need to actually spend a little bit of time during the week, to create that content. And I actually recommend batching your content. This is all kind of going to get me to the point of, why you need a strategy and then why you have an editorial calendar. When you schedule the time to create content and you batch that content, then you put it on your editorial calendar. And your editorial calendar is basically saying, hey, these are the things that I'm gonna do this month. Like it's October 1st, at the beginning of the month. What are you gonna create every single day of the week, or 1 to 2 times a week? It could be, hey, I got this great news article. I'm gonna create a blog post. And it might be one blog post that I create. With that, how many pieces of social content can I create off of that? Maybe I create a tweet at the same time I write that article. Maybe I write, a little more in depth for Facebook. Maybe I'm also then going on my social channels and, for instance, maybe I'm going to take some photos or whatnot and kind of, share that on, say, Instagram. So, lastly, before I get to the last slide here, actually, is, at the end of the month, like we all look at our businesses and we say, okay, what's the bottom line? Like, how much income did we bring in? Did we lose money this month, right? And we need to do this. You need to do the same thing with your social media activities. If you're just pushing content out there, at the end of the month, take a little bit of time, look at your content, see what actually worked, what resonated with your audience, and for the next month, make some adjustments. Make some adjustments, because this is going to help you as a business owner, like start to grow your business. If you're constantly doing the same thing on your channels, it's not gonna, and you're not seeing any results, like obviously doing something wrong. You need to make some adjustments to it. You need to, reconnect with your customers. So another tweetable for you guys: if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And that's why you need a strategy. So, in closing here, Mark mentioned Google Analytics. I put together a couple tools that I recommend pretty much every business owner start with. Definitely Google Analytics. Not only can it tell you what kind of website traffic you're getting, you can also see your social referrals. As you're creating content, you're able to actually dig into that and say, okay, I have this one article that accounts for 50% of my website traffic. Hey, I'm obviously doing something right there, or maybe it's getting picked up in search. Make your content easy to share. And a tool for this, I like a tool called Social Warfare. They add in really nice social sharing buttons to your site. It takes a couple minutes just to set up. You could also add custom images for when people are sharing your content on your social channels, so that they do stand out as opposed to the standard text post. I mentioned earlier about following industry like websites and blogs. Every morning I get up and I have basically put all my websites into a tool called Feedly or an RSS reader. And the benefit is that I can quickly run through all of this. I can see what's important, and then I can take that and quickly like skim the article and share it and schedule it on my social channels. So if you're not using an RSS reader, I definitely recommend that. It's a great time saver. Email marketing, as Mark mentioned as well. I mean, there's tons of tools for that. You've got GetResponse, Constant Contact, Aweber, Mailchimp, a lot of different services out there. Your email list is really important, and and it's not just about like collecting leads from your website. You can also collect them through your social channels as well. For example, you can use a tool called, say, Lead Pages to build a campaign around, say, a holiday promotion, or for instance, if you want to get people to opt in through your Facebook page, you can create a landing page tab and when people opt into it, that will put them in your email marketing service. The benefit there is that you're able to funnel your leads into one particular place, so that when you do have something to sell somebody or some information you want to share with them, you can email it out to that list. Lastly, Chris and I actually were talking about a couple of these earlier, but these are tools, and by the way, a lot of these tools are free. I mean, they're either free or they're like $9 to $10 a month. And and the thing is, they're going to actually save you a lot of time. Hootsuite, this is a tool that I use mainly for Twitter, but you can also use it to monitor, say, people commenting on your Facebook page. So you don't have to constantly go over to Facebook and say, okay, I got a new comment. Like, you can do all of this stuff within one screen. It also works well on mobile, so you might want to check that tool out. If I want to schedule any of my social updates, an absolute favorite tool of mine is Buffer. They have a free plan, they have a paid plan as well. But the great thing about that tool is, if you're wondering, well, am I posting at the right times on my social channels? They have a tool where I can literally say, okay, I want to post 10 times a day on Facebook, for instance, and it will actually show me a graph of when those people are online and actually give me recommended times when I should put my content out or when I should schedule it out. This way, I'm posting it when those people are online, as opposed to just posting it when I think instead of guessing, basically, it's giving me a more accurate, picture. Also, if you're looking for any top any people that are in a specific industry, for example, if you're let's say you're in real estate, for example, you might want to check out a tool called Uprise. It's a great tool for identifying publishers to maybe collaborate with on some additional content. You can also find some articles that you can share on your social channels. And lastly, two of my other favorite tools, Dropbox. How many of you use Dropbox in here for? Okay, this is an absolute time saver. I mean, basically, you take all your files on your computer, on your phone, you put them in the cloud, and they're accessible across all your devices. So this way, you always have things with you. For instance, it could be somebody asking for, like, hey, do you have that? Do you have that quote sheet for me? Or hey, can you send over that form? If everything's in the cloud, you can easily send it out. And then lastly, I talked about making time for content creation. Evernote is a tool that I use every single day. If I'm going for a run, for instance, they have a way to record audio, so I can record notes about something without having to stop my run. If I get an idea for a blog post or an article because I find something interesting in, say, Feedly, I can go in Evernote and I can create notes. And the benefit is I can write my whole blog post ready to publish it on my website when I get home. So it's a great collaboration tool. So with that, I just want to wrap up here. Try and fail, but don't fail to try. Social is one of those things that there's no magic potion. It's not gonna miraculously I'm just gonna start selling a lot of products. It's about engaging with your customers. The more you can put in the time building the relationships with those people and listening to them and finding out what it is that they're interested in, when it is time to sell, I mean, they're going to, because you have been helpful by sharing really great content, or you've answered some of their questions that they had about your products, they're going to be interested in what you have, to sell at that point. So I don't have anything physical to give you guys, but if you do want to download a copy of this presentation with the tools, you can go to the website link at the bottom. It's socialchefs.com/smallbizsummit. Basically, it's the presentation. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Christian.
Thank you, Chris.
Before we move on to Daniel, it'll only be 2 seconds because I want to make sure we use our time well. Can I make a couple comments on your presentation?
Sure.
Everything that Christian said is completely true. Kind of, if you will, calling it in doesn't work on social. You need to be really careful about creating content that is, in a perfect world, bespoke and engaging and so forth. That said, everybody hates a social media ghost town. If they come to your social media profiles, if you've overextended yourself and you've covered them all, and people roll up and they're like, this feels like social media Detroit. I would rather you work on a campaign where you drop links periodically, even if it's to your about page or to what's going on, in a moderately marketable, markety, spammy way, than not having anything updated on your blog or your social channels. As you evolve and this is a passionate man. This is a man who doesn't stop running to note blog posts, and unless you can find someone in your organization who is as passionate as him, it's going to be hard to kind of do it 100%. So like you said, it's not all or nothing. You need to evolve until it becomes a habit or until you start seeing results. And to quote my favorite fictional character, who's named Chauncey Gardner, social media is sort of like, it's more like farming than it is like, like cooking. You literally have to start the seeds and wait an entire season until you see the results. So if you start in earnest after today, and if you don't see the kind of results in the first, second, third Google Analytics report, please just commit for a while longer, and in the spring, everything will bloom. Okay, so next, Daniel, it's all you.
Great. Some of you may be thinking, who's that young guy? I was the second grader in Mark's class with the blog. No, my name's Daniel Russell. I'm the founder of a DC-based software company called Attentive.
He's not that young.
I'm not that young. I'm not that young. I put my contact information up there. If you do have any questions that we don't have a chance to get to, you can tweet them at me or you can email me at that contact email. But what I'll be talking about today is the company that I started, Attentive, kind of as a case study. We are DC-based, still very much a small company. We have about 7 employees. And we struggled through a lot of the same things that most small businesses do. We had to figure out how to get our message out there, how to go from a complete unknown to a well-known, and how to kind of occupy the niche space that we were looking to do. And social media played a very important part to that. And so I'll be talking about Attentive kind of as a case study. I'll be giving you very specific examples of what we did. I'll show you screenshots. And to give you a preview, over there in the white, those are the results from our very first social media campaign. We got almost 300,000 visitors in one day. We got 644 links back to our website, which is very important to drive traffic and also to build SEO. And then I was interviewed in LA for some reason because of our social media platform that we did. And so to start off, I'll be talking about what we've done in 3 specific areas. Testing channels, how we tested the different social media channels available to us. High value content, how we created content that people really wanted to see and to share. And then finally, how we amplified the opportunities that were given to us in the end. So to start off, testing channels. Now what do I mean by testing channels? Some of the other speakers have already covered it a little bit. But I really mean finding what is the best fit for your target market. If you're going after business people, LinkedIn, is a pretty obvious choice right off the bat. If you're, if you're a retailer and you have clothes or something, then things like Pinterest or Instagram are very valuable. And so I'll be talking about how we tested that, and then also what kind of content you should put up in those channels. So the 3 things that I wanted to make sure that we highlighted was what I talked about before, matching the target market for the right platform. So for us, we are a collaboration software. The goal for us is to kind of replace wasteful meetings. And so we wanted to go after people who have meetings, so those are typically professionals. We wanted to go after people that work around computers, so people that could use the software. And then hopefully they were a little bit tech savvy so that they could get on board pretty quickly. Then we also cultivated what I like to call a get the ball rolling base. So the farming analogy is one of the best I've ever heard, actually. Another really great one I've heard is it's like a snowball. You kind of have to push it a little bit to get it started, and then eventually, hopefully, you can get it to the point where it's rolling and getting bigger and bigger. And what I mean by cultivating a base is a lot of times in these social aspects, it's really hard to get that ball formed. It's hard to make the snowball. There's no snow. And so you go to your employees. That's what we did. All of our employees had social accounts on each of these things. We had employees' spouses. My wife was on social and helping us. We had friends. And so when we tweeted something out, they were our get the ball rolling base who started tweeting things and favoriting things for us. And then finally testing different genres of content. And here's what I mean by that. These are 2 tweets that we did, both in June. The first was we were trying to test kind of like this list style post where we were kind of see what the response was when we posted the 7 sins of deadly meetings. That got no favorites and no retweets, as you can see. The next one we tried was something funny. It says, we will continue having lots of meetings until we find out why no work is getting done. So just kind of a play on, people hate meetings. Meetings can be stupid sometimes. And that got more response. It might be hard to see, but we got 4 retweets and then 2 favorites. So we continued testing different content like this until we had a pretty good idea. Guides were just not a winner for us. Reposting news did a little bit better. Funny things got some action, some tweets, some favorites, but ultimately, interestingly enough, it was stats that emerged the winner. Posting stats about meetings and productivity was what got the biggest response for us. So we knew that that was the genre, the channel that we would go after. So we started to make high-value content directed towards that channel around stats. And what do I mean by high-value content? So we focused on our best channel. For us, we really wanted to focus down on Twitter, we wanted to focus on Facebook, and then we wanted to focus on LinkedIn. Those were kind of our 3 focuses. And so we made our content very shareable and what I like to call viral ready, so that if you get the opportunity, if the opportunity is there, your content can go viral. Sometimes the opportunity's there and the content is just not shareable, right? And so making sure that everything is viral ready. And then making sure that you promote your content even on non-social forums. And I'll give you an example of this in a second. So here was our very, very first high-value targeted piece of content that we made. It was a blog post that I researched and made called America Meets a Lot. It was a combination of infographics and text, which, it was a little bit long, but the key was it could be very easily broken up into different bits. So you can see right off the bat here, there's 3 big things you can tweet out there. You can tweet out $338, average salary cost of a meeting. That's tweetable right off the bat. You can tweet out 63% of meetings are conducted without a pre-planned agenda. People hate meetings, so they're tweeting out all these stats to their boss, right? And what eventually happened was this. In the corner, you can see our social shares. It had 525 tweets, 2,500 Facebook shares, and then 105 shares on Google+. There's not a ton of people on Google+, so we were proud about that. And then almost 1,000 shares on LinkedIn for our very, very first post. We had no social following.
Reddit, oh my God.
That's the key. That was a big key for us. So Reddit, if you guys haven't heard of it, is an aggregation platform where people post content from all over the web. That 1,513 upvotes you see, someone actually reposted it on Reddit. That was the second time. The first time it got posted on Reddit, it had 3,600 upvotes, and it was on the front page of Reddit for about a full day. So that was a big key. Getting into this area where we had very shareable content and getting in front of people who could start sharing it right off the bat. So now here's an example of what I mean by shareable and viral ready. Here's just a sample of 3 tweets from after that blog post went out. So on the top, someone tweeted, on average, people think 33% of meeting time is unproductive. People wanted to tweet that out. The next one, America Meets a Lot. He just tweeted out the title, and that was enough for him to tweet it. The third, someone took one of the images that I made and tweeted that. There was probably, give or take, 50 different things in that article that people could tweet out, depending on what they liked. So we made it very viral ready. And here's an example of what happened. On a typical day, we might see about, this is from Google Analytics, by the way, which was mentioned earlier. We had about, on a typical day, 11 visitors on our website at one given time. This is a screenshot of that exact moment. We had 11 people. When this started getting shared, we had 3,055 people on our website at one time, and that added up to almost 300,000 people in one day, 24-hour period. Our website had launched a month before. Then the next big key for us was taking the opportunities we were given and amplifying them. And what do I mean by that? Assume people are very bad at promoting their own content. What I mean by this is if somebody writes an article about you, about your business, assume that they are just terrible at promoting that, because oftentimes they are. They might tweet it out, but that's like as far as it goes. So you have to assume that people are bad about that. So then what do? You apply those tested strategies that you came up before. For us, it was stats. And then you apply that to this outside content that people are creating relative to your business. And then finally, change their message to make it more shareable. Sometimes, their title just wasn't great. Someone wrote an article about us that just said, new software out of DC. That's not very interesting. No one's going to read that. So we went into the content of it, found where they said, this software may help enable introverts to participate more in meetings. And we lodged onto that and started talking about introverts when we were pushing that article out, and it started to do well. So a couple of examples of that. This was the launch story that was published about Attentive. It was published in Fast Company, which was perfect for us. Fast Company's readership is our perfect demographic. A typical launch story about a software in Fast Company gets about 400, 500 shares. It's hard to see, but ours had 1,300 shares, so more than double what the average software story gets on Fast Company. The key is we promoted it for them. We assumed they would be bad at it, and we promoted it for them. We tweeted it out. We had Facebook people following them and favoriting it. We put it up on Reddit. We put it up on other social forums to get it shared. And eventually, that article got promoted to the front page of Fast Company because they saw all the hits coming in and all the favorites, and people said, well, we should probably push it to the front. Another example. Technically, DC is a relatively small news outlet. I actually really like them a lot. They did another story about us. We assumed that they were bad at promoting it. We promoted it. I got an email a few days later from the reporter saying, please, Daniel, let us know of any other things that we can write about you for, because our article had gotten so many hits. And so they were very willing to do a story about us in the future. And then another example of what I mean by amplifying opportunities, we got that launch story in Fast Company, and then I did a blog post detailing how we got a launch story in Fast Company, and it did really well. Not quite as well, it gets cut off a little bit, but about 300 tweets, and then there was more shares below that got cut off. But that's what I mean, is amplifying these opportunities as much as possible. So there's an arrow for that. So the takeaways, to kind of rehash things, we tested and picked the channels that worked best for us. Right? We found out that stats shared best for our target market, for professionals that worked around computers. We made sure that the content we create is just high value. There's a lot of good stuff in there so that it applies to every person that sees it and they can retweet it. And then we kept the ball rolling. We amplified. When we got that blog post to the front page of Reddit, we wrote another blog post about how we got it to the front page of Reddit. And so you just keep that ball rolling as much as possible, and it can really help social. Thank you.
I feel very blessed today to have these panelists, and it's your opportunity now to get a little bit of them as well. So we're opening up for questions. No time?
No, a couple of questions.
One or two questions. The lady in blue.
I can speak pretty loud, I think, so I don't have to wait for a microphone to hear me. I think we're doing pretty decently on social media. We have almost 10,000 followers on two Twitter accounts. We have over 500 on LinkedIn and over 500 on Facebook, which we think is less relevant for us because it's a consumer-based channel and we don't really sell to consumers. So my question to you is, we've been struggling with how to actually convert what we see as reasonable social media success in terms of sharing content and having that content shared and all the rest, getting invited to Twitter chats and things like that and to post on other people's blogs. But we're having trouble actually converting the social media success into sales, where the sales come mostly still from face-to-face meetings. And I'm wondering, once we see that success, how do we actually push that in a way that's converting to actual customers that pay money instead of just likes? Thank you.
I'll take a quick stab at that. So that first blog post I showed you, we had 300,000 visitors, right? Not all of them were interested in our software. One of the ways, though, that we were able to keep the interest there is we made sure that it was interesting content, but it was interesting content that related to what we were selling, right? So it was about meetings are wasteful, right? And so because of that, people said meetings are wasteful. Yeah, I agree, meetings are wasteful. What is this attentive thing anyway? And then it said save time in meetings, right? And so our content connected very quickly into our message. And then something else that helped us out was making sure that whatever you use to convert a visitor into a sale, we made that very accessible, because sometimes they have to click through a couple pages to get there. We made that accessible in the blog for us, which was our content.
Mark said something very salient in his presentation about how it's not it's not as useful to say how awesome you are. It's more useful to go ahead and lead by example, be the thought leader, be generous, tell a little bit about what happens in your back office or your process or your strategy and tactics, and then people will see that light and follow you back to your website, as opposed to, this is my press release, this is what we did last Thursday, this is, casual Friday or whatnot. Being the thought leader is very important to drawing people back to you and to seeing conversion and sales. Did I get that right?
Yeah, the only thing I was going to add is, so with the books that I've published, you can download it for free now without telling me who you are, but when I first introduced the book, you couldn't. You actually had to register for it. So you've got a great community of followers. Now look to offer them something of value, something so valuable that they have to tell you a little bit who they are. And so what I can share with you is when I first introduced the Welcome to Web to Sales book, I only had 9 downloads during the first 2 weeks, but 5 of those downloads were from people that had senior level marketing titles at large global organizations. So build a community, look to provide value, and if it's something that's really valuable, create an expectation that, you got to tell me who you are before I'm going to give it to you. And that's how you're able to identify sales leads.
And by the way, if you're directing them back to, like, say, a website or something like that, I'd create something, I call it you can call it a lead magnet, you might hear that term, but something to where people have to potentially opt into something on your website, on that article they're looking at, so you can learn more about it. Everything you create should have some sort of call to action, like a clear call to action, like what's the point of this? Do I want somebody to download something? Do I want to, give them, like, as Daniel had here, like maybe I could give them an infographic or, something like that as well. So just make sure there's a goal in mind with everything you're creating.
Yeah, if you're busking, do you know what busking is? Going around and playing your guitar in public for free. Always send someone around with the hat, and the hat is in fact your contact information so that you can move the relationship on. Another question? We have time for one more?
Right here.
No more time. No more time, but everybody here is available afterwards and in our future because we live in the cloud. So thank you very much for attending, and I hope you enjoyed today's workshop.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. That does conclude our panel. Congressman Connolly dropped by, so we'd like to hear his remarks. So please remain seated, and we will get started with our next panel in a few minutes. Please welcome Congressman Connolly.
Could use that.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Jerry Connolly. I represent this area in the United States Congress, and I just want to welcome you. How many of you are not from Fairfax County? All right. So you all want to live here, however. Is everyone from Northern Virginia?
Yeah.
Anyone not from Northern Virginia? Where are you from?
Montgomery County, Maryland.
Okay. Well, Northern Virginia, you're in a great place for small business, and the great capital region also. For one thing, where you are, the 3 wealthiest
Go ahead and give it to
counties in
him.
the United States are all located in Northern Virginia. So there are 3,166 counties in the United States, and the top 3 wealthiest are, in order, Loudoun, Arlington, and Fairfax. Sorry, it's not Montgomery County. Montgomery's up there, though. And 2 years ago, it was Arlington, Loudoun, Fairfax, and 3 years ago, it was Fairfax, Loudoun, Arlington. You notice a pattern. And the reason for that is the presence of the federal government. The federal government, beginning really in the early 80s, started outsourcing lots of, work to companies, private companies, and or created private entities to provide services to the federal government. Now, in the Maryland side of the river, a lot of that was healthcare related because of the NIH.
But here, on our side, we were heavily defense-driven initially because of the Pentagon and the CIA. So what that did was create a high-tech industry. For example, in Northern Virginia, we have over 7,000 technology companies, more than the Silicon Valley. They have more employees, we have more companies. And at one point, 75% of the world's internet traffic went through Fairfax County. We have created, just in this county where you are, as a result, 650,000 jobs. That is more jobs than downtown Washington. And it's all because of this nexus between the federal government and the private sector. And, I represent the third largest number of federal employees in the country, but I bet you for every federal employee, I represent 3 federal contract employees. And we provide, it's a knowledge-based economy, and it has, as a result, created great wealth based on income. So our median household income here is $110,000. I got 434 colleagues in Congress and the House, and many of them are looking at $45,000 and $50,000 median household incomes. So when I say what ours is, their eyes get real big. In fact, I think there are only 3 places in the country where the median household income has broken $100,000. Now, why do I tell you all that? Because small businesses can thrive in this environment. Whether you're making coffee or restaurants or supplies for offices or digital services or you name it, there's a market for it. And it's an entrepreneurial culture that actually rewards risk and entrepreneurship. So I think your conference is, the venue for this conference is well situated. You're in an environment where we want to reward and we want to encourage and we want to nurture entrepreneurship and risk-taking with a kind of low-tax culture, minimum regulatory framework, and a business-friendly government locally and at the state level as well. So welcome. Hope you succeed. And the coffee I just had is really good. At any rate, thank you so much for being here today. All the success in the world. Thank you.
Those are for them.
What's that?
Those are for them.
Those are, you want me to give them?
Yeah, give it to them.
All right.
Wow.
All right. Whose name? Mark.
Mark
Cheers,
Houseman.
sir. Oh, there you go, Mark.
All right.
Congratulations. Oh. Chris.
Christian and Abraham.
Christian.
Yes, thank you
There you go.
very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I know you're Daniel.
I am Daniel.
Thank
Thank you. That's
All
it.
And that means, is it Christian?
Christian, yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I get one. Oh, my gosh. All right. I hope it's under $50.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our second workshop. Please be back in this room. In 10 minutes, we will start our third workshop on small business incentives and opportunities by local and state. You have a 10-minute break. Again, please feel free to taste the Rock and Joe coffee out in the hallway. Thank you.
All right, thanks, man. Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna start writing some stuff right now.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm glad everything worked out.
Hey, thanks, man.